moving on to, well, this may be a bit of a niche topic. So actually, there may be some people out there who find this extraordinarily boring, but actually, but actually, archaeologists, I think I'm not alone when in terms of being an archaeologist and being excited about this, because we're talking about a PDF that's doing the rounds, which is the Standard for Pottery Studies in Archaeology. Now, this PDF outlines the approach to pottery for an archaeologist, different types of pottery, identifying pottery and all this kind of malarkey, and also other issues surrounding the creation of ceramic material. And it's a book that's so long overdue. I've been desperate for this sort of textbook for ages, because for a long time, I don't know about you, but I've always seen pottery experts as sort of gurus. You know, they've had secret knowledge.
Yes. Yeah, that you see a pottery, watch a pottery expert at work, and I'm full of admiration for people who have specialist knowledge that they can apply to whatever field it happens to be actually.
Hmm, hmm.
But yeah, you see a pottery guru come onto it, and they pick up a and sherd, right, a pot sherd, and it's almost as though they connect with it, and it starts to talk to them, and they talk about inclusions, and they come to conclusions, and it's fabulous. You start to see, an entire industry and distribution system out of one piece of, BB2 rim or something like that.
Hmm, hmm.
It's a great thing to be able to do, and what's wonderful about this new publication, which is, well, first of all, it's a joint effort between the prehistoric ceramics research group, the study group for Roman pottery, and the medieval pottery research group. And so often we talk about people being in silos, archaeological silos, whether it's an archaeological unit or a university or a particular period or whatever. Here you've got people working across the discipline, across periods, to try and come up with something that everybody can use. I think that's great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also, I think crucially, this is the sort of text that one or two specialists alone simply couldn't manage to put
Yeah.
together. I mean, I remember a few years ago now, sort of in a conversation with Paul Blinkhorn, the biker archaeologist, but also
And
known.
Anglo, Anglo-Saxon specialist and Anglo-Saxon pottery specialist. People might have seen Paul on Time Team quite a lot. And
Exactly,
and,
exactly.
and was it the pub archaeology as well? That short-lived
Pub dig,
pub
pub
dig.
dig.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yes,
pub
pub dig.
dig with
Yeah,
Roy Bremner. Yeah,
that's right.
uh,
The
but
box set is available. The box set DVD is available in certain remainder shops at the moment. Get it. It's great fun.
yeah, absolutely. But this renowned pottery expert, who
Yeah.
in particular people will know from Time Team, um, has been one of those characters who sort of, as you say, comes in from the side, sort of. So a piece of pot is found, and he just sort of emerges and looks at it through a little sort of, magnifying glass, and he's sort of, almost like a wine expert. It's a skill. It's something,
Oh
when
yeah,
someone
very
can
much
get
so. Very
get
much so.
nuances from the smallest of things. But in a conversation with him, I was sort of saying, well, actually, this is the sort of book, that the text that we need. Is there any chance of you putting together some sort of catalogue or something, even just the briefest of catalogues, just to talk about the approach to pottery, different types of pottery, just some basics. And essentially, he just didn't have the time. And one of the reasons that's the case is because this is such a specialism, and so his time is in demand. But also as well, it is a very complicated thing, and so it's really nice, as you say, to see so many groups coming together to write this. And it's also been funded by Historic England, which is a good use of Historic England's money. Uh, and one of the reasons why, and again, this is where this is quite a niche topic. But one of the reasons why this is such an interesting thing for archaeologists is because there are so many variants of pottery. What some people might not understand, as it were, looking in from the outside, is that you can get really nuanced local variants of certain types of wares, use of glaze, the use of clay, the way in which the pot is fired, the amount of distance and that pots travel in terms of trade. I mean, some of the best sort of, I don't know, 13th, 14th century pottery comes from Germany, for example.
Indeed.
It's
Yeah.
found in Britain. So it's it's one of those things where it's hard. It's a bit like, I guess, being a chess master, or as I say, a wine expert. It's easy to get into, but it's really hard to master. And what we'll do is we'll put this document and the link to the PDF in the video description below, I think. Um, but I don't know. Do you have any? When it comes to sort of specialisms and sort of the things that artifacts can tell you, do you think that, have you had any particular sort of interesting stories come out of, for example, pottery, or really a niche artifact?
Particularly when it comes to pottery, I think there's something, and it's partly because of the process that certainly of making it, because there is that direct physical connection that you can very often literally see. You can very often see the finger marks, the fingerprints, even of the potters who made these things. If you have the right, if the right sherd survives, and you've got access. I mean, I have a Roman mortarium which I use in education work, where you can literally. And I do this with particularly working in schools, to get the kids to put their thumb on the spout and just slide it across in the direction, and you can tell that the person who made the spout made it with their thumb, and that they were right-handed because of the way that the angle of the spout of this mortarium is slightly biased towards in the way that it would be if a right-handed person had slid their thumb to make this thing. So there's that immediate physical connection with the potter in the 3rd century. Who we're never going to know the name of. We're not even going to know where they lived, but there's it's immediately obvious that another person made this, another skilled person made this. So they're wonderful at talking to us about people's skills and talents, and then about how they try to earn a living, about how they how people transported things, about fashion, but
well, but also as well in that sense, also about the there's another subtlety here as well, and that is the cultural norm of pottery. So there are examples where pots turn up in a society that isn't necessarily pottery literate, if that's the right way of putting it. But they don't routinely make pots, especially wheel spun pottery.
Yes.
And they will use that pottery, that particular ceramic, in a different way to which it is intended. So it may well be perhaps intended to have been maybe a dairy dish or something like that, but it's actually used perhaps as a whale blubber lamp or something along those lines. And it's the way in which actually pots, they demand a certain as it were, they demand an answer. If someone presents you with a cup or a pot, you have to decide what you're going to do with it. You can't just sort of, because it's been made, because it's been fashioned, because it has a form and a function, it challenges you to decide what that function is. And I always find it interesting when you do have pots traversing cultures, and they come into an area where suddenly people are having to go, oh, what should we put in this? It sounds like a simple thing, but actually it reveals so much about people.
It does. I mean, if I have any particular knowledge of pottery, it's Roman pottery. I did courses in Roman pottery, and have looked at distribution systems and things like that. And the thing I found most fascinating about it works on a number of levels. First of all, in terms of the cultural importance of something as crude as a piece of clay that's been put in a fire to make it go hard. You see sometimes, for example, a Samian bowl that has been broken and then it's been riveted back together, and it looks really crude. You think, well, why has somebody done that? Why not just, we live in a throwaway society now. If we dropped a cooking bowl, a salad bowl now, we just put it in the bin, or break it up and use it as hardcore in our garden, whatever, something like that. But we probably just chuck it in the bin. Whereas, this person went to a great deal of trouble to drill holes and rivet it with a copper rivet, and why have they done that? Was it?
Well, and especially when they haven't actually, as it were, restored the functionality of the
absolutely.
Of the pot. It can't be used again to hold liquid.
Exactly. Was just the existence of this thing important? Was it an heirloom? Did it have some other. We're never going to know, but it's a great question
Mm.
to ask. And then the other one, I think, when it comes to again Roman pottery, and but I think we see this elsewhere. Uh, it's the issue of Samian, and
Hmm.
people used to talk about Samian as sort of, oh, it was kind of high, it was a high status thing. It was expensive. It came all the way from Gaul. It had to be imported, and so on, which is all absolutely right,
Hmm.
until it's pointed out
And yet it's everywhere.
exactly it's everywhere. And in fact, what it's copying are the tableware in silver and precious metals that the really high status households had. So,
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
fact, what it is, it's a piece of middle class aspiration, if you like, at best.
Yeah,
Um,
which clearly made its way in a second-hand relationship into the houses of people who weren't even that well off,
it's
and then therefore ended up pretty much across the Roman world. But
absolutely
what's interesting there is the, and this again where it gets really sort of again niche, is the way in which actually what we're talking about there is how these objects related to the particular cultural mindset of the visual. Um, Texture of something. So
yes.
people often make a big thing about the way in which Homer in the Iliad describes the wine dark, Mediterranean
Fine Dark
Sea.
Sea, yes.
Yeah, what does that mean, kind of thing?
Yeah.
And it probably means something about the umptious feeling of the water, this deep place where the underworld is located. And, it's like looking into a mysterious wine cup. And in the same way, what we may be seeing in Samian pottery is the fact that it's highly glazed. For a Roman eye, perhaps, or maybe even just for someone in a Gaulish market, silver, tin, copper, bronze, this kind of thing, and Samian were on the same sort of shininess spectrum, as it were. It elicited the same sort of emotions, which to us is a distinct thing, pottery, metal. Whereas actually having something that's sort of imitating metal and that's a bit shiny could have been close enough for them. Um, just as we just sort of bring this to a close, I suppose it's worthwhile just reading a little bit from the standard for pottery studies, and it says here, although it is widely regarded as a reliable tool for dating, pottery is significant as evidence for technology, tradition, modes of distribution, patterns of consumption, and site formation processes. Which is actually that's a good point actually because it's hard wearing. You can see where pots break up and move in the soil, for example.
Absolutely.
It is unfortunately all too common for a pottery specialist to be given bags of poorly processed ceramics and asked simply to date them and write a report. You can hear someone rolling their eyes when they write this. When simple, basic tasks have not been carried out, the true value of an assemblage has not been understood. The potential for missing important information is too great. With this in mind, this standard takes the reader through various stages of an archaeological project, from planning and data collection through to report writing and archiving, with the intention of informing not only pottery specialists, but also those who manage and monitor projects. So this is a great opportunity to get the most out of pottery, and I'm so happy that this document's been produced. I've been crying out for this sort of thing for years.
And I think we have to say all credit to them. It's free on open access.
Yeah,
Anybody can download it and use it, and I think that is absolutely fantastic.
yeah.
It's a yes, it's niche. It's not something it's not like reading. It's not your latest bedtime thriller or whatever. But if you're involved in any kind of excavation, particularly if you're directing an excavation, um, read it, absorb it. It's got some very very good things in it, and I think all credit to the team that's put it together.
Absolutely. In fact, I had forgotten to, and I have just now bookmarked it. It's now firmly a feature of my links on in the old web browser. So, yeah, a brilliant little assemblage of information.